But this is day one of the virtual summit, W2 Capitalist Virtual Summit 22. And I am super glad that all the speakers that you're going to hear out through this week are super incredible, super amazing. They're all people that I have a personal relationship one way or the other. For those of you that don't know, Mark Willis is my certified financial planner. And he is no stranger to the W2 Capitalist community. And when he posed the topic for today about not your average inflation, I am super excited to hear what he's got to say, because it is something that's all on our mind. A lot of us, well, I should say me personally, I am having a little bit of FOMO because I'm sitting on a little bit of cash, and I'm like, man, am I not doing what I need to be doing with that? And hopefully we're going to get into that a little bit. But let me take care of some business real quick. This is the W2 Capitalist Virtual Summit 2022. If you don't know me, my name is Jay Helms. I'm the founder of the W2 Capitalist. We are a community for the purpose, or a resource for the purpose of really three things, right? If you're looking to achieve, number one, create multiple streams of income, achieve financial freedom, and then talk about building legacy wealth. And Mark has certainly helped me on a personal level to help build some legacy wealth. And when I talk about we are a resource to achieve financial freedom, last year we had 5 members of our mastermind, close to 10% of our mastermind, were able to put in their final notice of resignation, leave the W-2 world, and now full-time real estate investing, or really doing whatever they want to do. A lot of those folks you're going to hear from this week. This year, we've already had 3 people do the exact same thing, and they are they're living it, right? So they've put in their notice, they've exited the W-2 world, and they're going to do that. So that's what the W-2 Capitalist is all about. And Mark, I'm going to kick it over to you, sir.
Well, sounds good, man. And I'm kind of sad that I couldn't keep your name for a little while longer. I thought we were getting adopted into the J Helms family, and you were going to take us all out for dinner and pay for my college, whatever else that gets all the benefits that come with being a part of your family. So
That's it.
yeah.
Happy
Awesome.
to adopt you, man. Happy to
Love
adopt you.
Love it. Hey, great. Well, we'll talk later about that. But we've got 28 minutes. Am I remembering that right?
Yes, sir.
All right. So we've got a lot of ground to cover, literally quite a bit. So if it's all right, I'm going to share screen and we'll jump into our topic together today. We're going to be talking about something that is high and on the minds of many a real estate investor, and many people out there right now are really dealing with and frustrated with inflation. So we're going to be covering that together with our time together today. And I'm going to be specifically getting into how to increase your own money supply. To heck with the Fed's balance sheet. Let's increase your own balance sheet, right? I want to hear you make the news. I don't want to hear us talking about the news. Let's make some news by you increasing your own money supply. So about 100 years ago, we had a really weird phenomenon take place. It was November 1923, and hyperinflation of Weimar Republic Germany had reached its peak due to Germany's obligation to pay a bunch of reparations after World War I. Hyperinflation just reached a fever pitch in 1923, where one American dollar was worth 4.2 trillion German marks. That's $1 for every 4 trillion German marks. So it literally took a wheelbarrow's worth of paper to buy a loaf of bread. So can you imagine walking down the street with that, Jay? I mean, just, the thieves might steal the helpful wheelbarrow and leave your worthless money on the ground, right?
Yeah, no, I can't fathom that at all.
and there's pictures of kids playing with the money like it's Legos. They got people using money to burn in the fireplace to keep everybody warm. And this is interesting. I was looking at the cumulative inflation by decade since 1913. Why 1913, you might ask? Well, that was the year the Federal Reserve was created. So its part of its mandate is stable prices and low unemployment. And this is sort of its report card, what we're looking at here. As you can see, there was 92% inflation from 1913 to 19. The only period of time there was any kind of deflation was during the Depression of 1930 to 39. And if you can imagine this, we've had 2,055% inflation, 2,555% inflation since 1913. In other words, something that cost $100 in 1913 would cost $2,500 today. All right. So this is a vast increase in the money supply. So this is going to blow your mind. The M2 money supply. Now that's the amount of money just sort of sloshing around out there in our wallets and our bank accounts. It's increased 10 times since 1990, from 2 trillion to 22 trillion today. Now, think about that for a minute. Has our population as a country, as the United States of America, have we grown by 10 times the people since 1990? Not even close. According to the US Census data, we went from 250 million in 1990 to 330 million Americans today. That's not even 2 times the increase. That's like 25% growth. That's not even 2 times the increase. And yet we have 10 times the money. So Jay, I won't just ask you, but for all of us listening, do you feel 10 times wealthier than your parents felt in 1990? It's a good question, right? We don't have it. Just because somebody added a zero to your bank account, you might feel great. But if somebody, banks, government, whatever, if they added a zero to everybody's bank accounts, then all of a sudden the price of bread goes up and Lamborghinis go up in price, right? If just Jay Helms, whichever one of you is the real Jay Helms, please stand up. But if just Jay Helms got that extra zero, he'd be getting the Lamborghini. But if all of us got the zero at the end of our bank balance, like has happened over the last 30 years, then nobody gets a Lamborghini and the price of bread goes up. All right. So this is going to continue, but I'd say that that's a big deal. And what does it mean? What does all this mean? It means the government is destroying the purchasing power of our money. That's what inflation is. It's a stealth tax. It's a tax that everybody pays. The rich pay it, the middle class pay it, and yes, even the poor people pay this stealth tax. Nobody's excluded from this. In fact, it's the most harmful to the middle class and to the poor because they're the ones who have the least affordability to be able to manage this increase in prices. So they don't even have enough money left over to buy the bare essentials for their families. And yet, because the government's insane economic policies, they're going to be forced to survive on even less. So this means that inflation functions as a stealth tax. Rather than taking money directly from you and like voting on the tax increase, it's just done through opaque taxes called inflation. That's sort of the idea. Now, a guy named Milton Friedman, he was an economist. He said, inflation is taxation without legislation. Inflation is taxation without legislation. And it's also, without any minimum rate, meaning they can raise it to whatever level they want and be able to take away more and more of the purchasing power as a result. All right. So how can we protect ourselves? This is obvious, right? We're hearing it enough in the news now. Everybody knows it's not transitory like it was referred to last year. Inflation's here, at least for the temporary period. It's here to stay. Some people say it's going to be another year. Some people say 10 years plus. But here are some of the strategies I hear clients mention to me. They bring it to me. They hear the articles, the news reports and everything. They hear people describing options for getting rid of inflation. And here are a few of the ideas that I hear when I have one-on-one Zoom meetings with folks and phone calls with folks all across the country. They say things like, well, let's buy stocks and let's buy some real estate because, hey, they always do well and always beat inflation, right? Maybe we'll find out. We can switch from steaks to bug protein and lettuce. I'm not making this up, Jay. This was literally one of the articles I was reading about how to fight inflation, how to protect yourself from inflation. Switch to lettuce. That was their answer.
At the price of hamburger meat and steaks right now, you might be onto something if I could stomach it. I don't know though.
Well, the bugs, I'm out for that one. But and then use toilet paper only every other time. Okay, I didn't read that one, but that's. You get the idea. They're trying anything they can to help you feel better in the mainstream, oh so average financial media.
There's going to be a surge in the amount of toilets installed with bidets.
That's right. That's right. Awesome. Well, man, I'm feeling uncomfortable just talking about that. We better move on. All right, so let's talk about stocks first. Stocks, some might say that the best hedge against inflation is the stock market, but is it true? Let's find out. This is a picture, again, from 1913 until about today, including the stock market and specifically the S&P 500 and going clear back to 1913. So what is the amount that you can get in the return on the stock market in any given year? Does it do enough to keep up with inflation? So look at the growth of the market. And what do you notice? I mean, look at 1929. There's the Great Depression. Look how great it looks. Not so great, right? Kind of like a little, maybe a speed bump. Certainly not a Great Depression. And look at the giant surge from 1982 to 2001. There's an incredible lurch upward. Some people call this the Roaring 20. This is the period of time where the baby boomers were coming of age. This was the computer revolution. It was an incredible period to be in the stock market. And many people became financial advisors at this age, and now they're still serving clients today. And they were a part of this Roaring 20 where everybody could just fall off a log and make 12% on their mutual funds. Okay. I mean, that's literally where Dave Ramsey gets it from. That period of time, that 20-year period is known as the Roaring 20. And this was sort of like a gift from the gods of Wall Street. Now, fast forward, and the baby boomers have gotten a bit older. And from 2001 to 2020, we had the Boring 20, the Boring 20. And this is literally what happened during the first 12 years of that 20-year period. There was literally no growth from 2001 to 2013. That's a dozen years lost. So can you deal with a dozen years just gone off your portfolio, especially when you look at the volatility in the midst of all that? I mean, look at the crashes happening twice there. We lose half of our life savings 2 times over a 12-year period, and it takes 12 years just to break even. So that's the Boring 20, because we start and stop at the same point. And we had tremendously lower yields. We went from 12% a year falling off a log in the mutual funds market to this. This is third-party research, and they're saying that the real results of the stock market over 30 years was 2.29%. That's if you were invested in stocks, bonds, kind of a blend, target date funds, index funds, that sort of thing. Your 30-year real return for real investors was 2.29%. Jay, does that strike you as just, that gobsmacks me to read that?
Yeah, because there's a comment that floats around everywhere. The average return for the stock market is 8%, right? 8 to 10%. Mm-hmm. So where does that comment come from? Are they looking at a different time? I mean, I imagine they're looking at the averaging the 12 months, the 3-year timeline. I mean, is that where they see that, or how does that quote become so popular that just almost anybody can rattle it off if it's not true?
Well, it's like my podcast is titled "Not Your Average Financial Podcast." There's no such thing as averages. The market averaged 8%, but real investors got 2.29%. Now, how is that possible? The answer is volatility. Let's go back to this chart right here. Volatility is not the same thing as a straight line upward and to the right. And think about it this way. In the Midwest, we have a phrase called "as the crow flies." You probably have it in Florida too. As the crow flies. It takes 2 miles to fly directly from your house to the grocery store. But in the real world, you got to go up and down and left and right and stop and start and turn left and make a U-turn and park your car. All that wastes energy through volatility, right? Does that concept make sense, Jay?
Yes, absolutely.
So if we have a straight line up and to the right, then sure, we could all get 8%. But the problem is up and down, right? The volatility, it's like a spring that's been coiled up really tight. If you were to stretch that spring out, it would go a lot farther. And most people don't realize that volatility is the zapping power. It's the wealth destroyer in most people's portfolios. And true to form, the inflation over that same 30-year period was 3.6%. Now, this is not just little old me saying this, Jay. This is third-party Dalbar. They are a well-respected Massachusetts research firm, and they do analysis every year to check out the real returns of the market. Now, what about the next 20 years? I'm going to call it, well, we went from the roaring 20 to the boring 20 of the last 20 years. Now, maybe the next 20 years is the pouring 20. I don't know. You have to tell me. No one's got a future crystal ball, but this is when 10,000 baby boomers, increasing to almost 20,000 baby boomers, will retire every single day for the next 20 years. And when that many people are leaving the stock market, what do you think is going to happen to prices? Okay, so maybe real estate is our answer then. Maybe people think buying a house, don't rent, just buy a house. It'll always beat inflation, right? Well, there's some good news here. Level mortgage payments will keep you from being affected by inflation. If you're renting an apartment, prices are going to go up there. But level mortgage payments stay level, and that's true. But let's take a deeper look. In truth, in high inflation times, real estate runs into some of the same problems as the stock market, but it can get accelerated. I mean, the mortgage might be level, but what about property taxes? What about, heating your home or cooling it? And what about everything you need to fix up that house? The roof repair, the landscaping, everything gets more expensive when you own that house. One of the big problems with real estate in the face of high inflation is that interest rates on mortgages are going to go up. I mean, what have we seen, Jay? You could probably tell me. I've been told that the average mortgage rate was 5.6% as of last week, and it might hit 6 this week.
Yeah, I mean, it's gone tremendously. It looks a lot like your graph from a couple of ways.
Yeah,
it's hockey sticking for sure.
And if you've got a budget of X dollars a month to spend on your mortgage, and rates went from 3% to 6%, that's half the house you can buy for the same mortgage payment that you used to be able to buy. That's half as many doors that you can buy on a rental property. So when mortgage rates go up, that is difficult for you when it comes to doing what you want to do with real estate. And that doesn't even count all the other factors like carrying costs and other expenses of owning real estate. Now, historically, according to Case-Shiller, real estate prices have only grown about 1% above inflation over the last 30 years. About 4% is what Case-Shiller says real estate has done over the last 30 years. That's only 1% above inflation, but that's not including the carrying costs, the property tax, repair and maintenance, non-paying tenants. And I don't know if many people here experience this, but I can say that the government over the last 2 years allowed tenants not to pay their rent. There was collectively like an agreement that, hey, there's going to be a rent moratorium, which made it really difficult for landlords in the last 2 years to cover their bases. All right, so I'm wanting to not just be average, I want to be awesome when it comes to this whole inflation thing. I don't want to just get an average inflation adjusted return of 1% a year. If being average leaves us average, I want to be not so average. So what else is there besides stocks and real estate? And certainly bonds have been a terrible hedge against inflation and are crashing right now. We've actually had the worst 4 months of the bond market in the history of the bond market in these first 4 months of the year. The stock market is crashing again as we are recording this, and it's the worst start to the year since 1939 in the S&P 500. So there's some big things happening, and I'm not going to pretend to know the future, but I can look carefully at the past and decide what I want to do with my money, and so can you. So let's find some ways to fight these insidious effects of inflation. I call it the weapons of math destruction. Get that? Catch that, Jay? Weapons of math destruction. So what are those weapons?
Took me a minute. I got it.
Yeah. Got it. So what are the weapons of math destruction that are coming at us right now? I'd say it's 3 things. Compound growth, which is wonderful when it's working for you. It's terrible when it's fighting against you. Leverage, which again, leverage is a wonderful thing when you can use it, but it's being used against you right now. So beware of that. And then third, optionality. How can we flip the script on these 3 weapons of math destruction and use it to our advantage? You don't want to bring a knife to an inflation fight. You need to use the same weapons that they're using against you to protect yourself and even win. All right. So I believe that bank on yourself is one of the best ways you can protect yourself against the three problems of the weapons that are being used against you. And specifically, bank on yourself, just as a side note, is a life insurance contract. Now, if you love real estate, and I do too, I've got it in my portfolio, real estate is built on a contract. And if you love contracts because you love real estate, then you're going to love Bank on Yourself, which is a dividend paying whole life insurance contract. That's what contracts are. They are contractual wealth, not paper wealth, like the stock market gives us. So we're going to talk about the power of compounding with Bank on Yourself life insurance. We're going to talk about the power of leverage using dividend paying whole life insurance to leverage other assets. And we're going to look at the power of optionality through the velocity of money. And we're going to do that in 8 minutes. All right. So the first is Bank on Yourself designed whole life insurance is uninterrupted compound growth. Guys, it cannot go down in value. Life insurance benefits actually from an increasing financial world where inflation is up because the policy does not crash. There's no down years. In fact, I call it a stop loss on my net worth. Whatever my policy's value is today, that's its minimum guaranteed value for the rest of my life. And every year, that cash value is growing on a predictable and guaranteed basis. On top of that, if inflation rears its ugly head and sticks around for a few years, my dividends on my whole life insurance policy will respond favorably. Parties at my house, if we have higher inflation sustained over some period of time. And in fact, the cash value, I want you to imagine like rings in a pond or like rings on a tree. Every ripple is bigger than the last one. And that's how it works with these policies. The cash values increase is on a greater number every single year, and the previous year's growth is locked in for the rest of your life. So this is counterintuitive, but it's worked for hundreds of years, even before the Federal Reserve was born. Next is its ability to be used as leverage. So we can use liquidity in the cash value. You can access the cash in the policy and do whatever you want with it. That allows you to take advantage of opportunities, right? So opportunities come to those who are ready to take advantage of them. Let that sink in for a moment. If the Fed is going to try to fight inflation and sends the economy into a recession, as some are now suggesting, then life insurance will stand to be at the ready for those who own it and who need access to capital. See, I can grab some cash out of my policy today and invest in a real estate deal tomorrow. When I decide it's time for me to find the next deal or to take advantage of an opportunity, then having access to liquid money in my policy is going to be huge. And when we have one of these Bank on Yourself designed policies have access provisions called policy loans, and it allows you to borrow against the policy. Now, that kind of leads me to the third piece, which is optionality. When you borrow against the life insurance policy, it's not either or, it's both and. So most people put their money in places where it's either or. Either I'm going to get this rental property, or I'm going to invest in my stock market account, or I'm going to keep it in a savings account, or I'm going to pay off my credit cards. It's either or for most people. But because it's a Bank on Yourself designed policy, when you access the cash as a loan, you're borrowing against the policy. It's almost like you're using it as collateral. You are using it as collateral. And that means the policy is still there, earning growth and dividends as if you had never touched the money in the first place. So you can invest in your real estate deal and get the continuous guaranteed growth of the policy. So that's sort of the big three weapons that are being used against you: compound growth, leverage, and optionality. We can use the velocity of money to not just say either or, but rather you now can say both and. You can take the option to do both. I'm going to kind of wrap us up with a story. This is a guy named Dan. He's a real life guy. He's going to be on our podcast again as a guest here in a few weeks. Dan Proskauer out in Boston. He was kind enough to share his actual net worth chart. And he sent us this just about a year or two ago. And at the time, he showed us the first 10 years of his financial life, was going through the boring 20 I mentioned here. So this is actually the first 10 years of that boring 20 from 2000 to 2009. And he went through the rise and fall of the tech bubble. the recovery period, and then the housing crash of 2008. And as you can tell, there was basically no growth for him over that many year period. All right. Since he started his first bank on yourself policy, this is from Quicken, and he just reports his net worth. It shows this nice chart. Look at what's happened to his net worth since he opened up his first policy in June of 2009. He's literally increased his own money supply. He's tripled his net worth in 10 years. Now, this is locking in real gains, real wealth, contractual wealth, not just paper profits and paper losses, but real wealth locked in. So guys, let's get you ready for the fight. There's going to be an inflation fight coming. It's already here. And, if you're not already prepared for this fight, you got to buckle in. You got to lay the foundation for the next fight. You really cannot build a storm shelter when the tornado is rolling through town, or in Jay's case, the hurricane. All right. So the good news is today is the first day of the rest of your life. So my question is, what are you going to do with this very precious day, this very precious one singular life you have? If you think we're done with inflation, if you think we're done with market volatility, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. You got to be ready for the next one. So the very first day you start your bank on yourself policy, your financial goals are already locked in, and they can only improve your situation if interest rates continue to rise. If we continue to get inflation, you get just better and better dividends. So I think many people here today are hearing the news. They're aware of what's going on in the news media, and more importantly, in the world economy. And I think you're here because you want something better, and you know that the traditional ways to fight inflation are not working. I saw my savings account interest rate. That's not going to do the trick. And the markets don't seem to care whether you win or lose. And so what if you had something that buffered against and even improved your situation when interest rates continue to rise, as they appear to want to do for the foreseeable future? So guys, I'd say best thing we can do is have a conversation. It's not a good fit for everybody, but I'm happy to discuss any questions as you have them, as we look forward to the next year, next couple of years. Inflation is around for the foreseeable future, and I want to be able to help you take advantage of it.
And there are many reasons to talk to Mark, not just to hedge inflation, but it is one of those things that's on everybody's mind right now. Also, I need to disclose that Mark is a sponsor of the W2 Capitalist. He's also my certified financial planner. I'm also a client of his, so I wouldn't have him on if I didn't believe in what he's doing. And if there's ever a time where you want to connect with me and say, hey, Jay, I really want to make sure Mark's not just, blowing smoke. Let's get on a call and talk. And also, this is part one of a 2-part series this week. So Mark is the only presenter that is going to present twice this week. So he's going to join us tomorrow at 12:30 Eastern, 11:30 Central. So if you guys want to join us for the what I'm assuming is going to be the final part of that presentation, please do so. Also, the recording is going to be available afterwards. I imagine tomorrow, Mark, we didn't talk about this, but you may have some time for Q&A, or we would have the option to go long if your schedule allows. We're just backed up against the time today, and we're about to transition to Matt Picaro. Matt, if you're here, your name may say Jay Helms, and I don't know it. And until I see Matt jump on, we may just.
Who is the real Jay Helms?
There it is.
Stand up. I do not have a mohawk though, but I should have. If I knew we were all trying to be you, I would have shaved my head, man.
I pride myself on having a successful career in the IT world, but apparently I cannot copy and paste the right Zoom link, and that's what happened. So.
Happens to the best of us, man.
Guys, Mark, and Julia is Mark's assistant. She's here. If you guys want to have some conversation in the chat, one-on-one, whatnot, feel free to do that. Mark, thank you very much. I love the whole thing about battling inflation. And, what's funny is every time you present with proven data points, right? And it's not just a bunch of fluff. So appreciate you doing that. Looking forward to the finalization of your presentation tomorrow. And
Jay, you said you were going to be bringing the money printing machine tomorrow. You're going to be bringing that for anyone who attends.
The only thing is if I do that, not only is it illegal, but if we're just putting more dollars into circulation, won't that increase inflation?
If it's just us little crew, then we'll all make out just fine, man.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, we'll issue some Shroot bucks. How about that?
Yeah, I was thinking, like W2 capital dollars or something
there you
like
that. Well, thank you, Mark. It begins with a thought, an idea that keeps growing in your mind. You spend days, months, or even years just simply thinking about it. There are many ways to get started, take action, and make progress, but both you and I know the best way is to have a guide as you surround yourself with like-minded people. Peers who are on your level that are actively taking the next step. You'll feel empowered and your confidence will breed confidence. Having so many options to choose from when purchasing a real estate investing educational program, you will soon find out that just a few will understand your thoughts, your fears, and your expectations. For the next 6 weeks, I will be your coach. Grasp your vision, create realistic goals, and diligently apply what I've learned from investing since 2014, and deliver a framework for you to build your experience and portfolio. Seating is limited. Register today.